As a boy, all I wanted was to be accepted and liked by the other boys. But that acceptance meant I had to acquire this almost disgusted view of the feminine.
The entire controversy began with what seemed like a simple misunderstanding, but it quickly spiraled into a full-blown scandal that has shaken both Hollywood insiders and fans alike. It all started when accusations of fat-shaming surfaced, a sensitive and explosive topic that immediately captured public attention. Reports suggest that the argument originally stemmed from comments made by Ryan directed at someone connected to the situation, allegedly the husband involved in the dispute. Once the matter became public, Ryan reportedly lost his temper, calling the man's behavior shameful and completely unacceptable. Observers believe that what Brian Friedman, a close associate, might later highlight is that Ryan's outrage stemmed from the belief that his wife had been harassed, an accusation that carried emotional weight. It's clear that Ryan cherishes his family, but the way this entire ordeal unfolded exposed a side of Hollywood few get to see, one filled with manipulation, image control, and emotional pressure. Ryan's interactions throughout this period have been described as complex and strategic. Sources claim he often kept his distance, only responding to certain people when he needed something in return. Some even allege that Ryan used his children as part of a subtle manipulation tactic, attempting to sway public sympathy and strengthen his image during the controversy. These personal and emotional tactics only added more layers to an already messy and confusing situation, leaving fans wondering what was genuine and what was performance. Things took an even darker turn a few weeks before filming began. Less than 4 months after Blake Lively had given birth, she was reportedly devastated to learn that her co-star and director, Justin Baldoni, had secretly contacted her personal fitness trainer without her knowledge or consent. According to the allegations, Baldoni implied that he wanted Lively to lose weight within just 2 weeks, supposedly because there was a scene in which he would have to lift her. However, no such scene existed in the film's script. This revelation left Lively feeling humiliated, betrayed, and deeply uncomfortable about returning to work so soon after giving birth, a time when most new mothers are still adjusting physically and emotionally. The situation worsened when Lively fell ill with strep throat during production. In what initially seemed like a kind gesture, Baldoni offered to help by connecting her with an expert he had on retainer, someone who could assist her with probiotics and recovery. However, when Lively began filling out the medical privacy forms, she discovered that the so-called expert was not a health specialist as described, but a weight loss consultant. This discovery reportedly left her stunned and heartbroken. Once again, she felt that Baldoni's actions were an indirect attempt to shame her for her body and her postpartum appearance, reinforcing the painful idea that her value was tied to her looks rather than her talent. What might have once been a simple disagreement over creative direction had now transformed into a full-scale personal conflict, one laced with mistrust, emotional manipulation, and professional tension. As production continued, whispers began circulating across Hollywood. Whispers about a toxic environment on set, silent feuds, and subtle acts of power between two of the industry's most beloved figures. Eventually, the tension became so unbearable that it spilled out of the studio and into the courtroom, turning what was once a promising film collaboration into a legal and emotional battlefield. The entire saga has since captivated the media, dividing fans into two fiercely opposing camps: those who side with Lively, portraying her as a victim of body shaming and manipulation, and those who defend Baldoni, arguing that his actions were misunderstood or taken out of context. During a particularly emotional court session, reports claim that Blake Lively broke down in tears, leaving everyone present silent and shaken. That moment, captured and recounted by several outlets, symbolized just how deeply this conflict had cut, not just through Hollywood's glossy surface, but into the very heart of fame, power, and human vulnerability. What began as an on-set disagreement has now become one of the most talked-about controversies in recent entertainment history, forcing the world to confront uncomfortable questions about body image, respect, and the pressures that even the brightest stars face behind the scenes. When the controversy surrounding Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni first surfaced, It appeared to be a simple misunderstanding, but what has since come to light paints a far more complex picture. According to reports, Blake was humiliated to discover that Justin had allegedly contacted her personal fitness trainer without her permission. The claim suggested that he implied she needed to lose weight within 2 weeks for a supposed scene where he would have to lift her. A scene that, as it turned out, didn't even exist in the script. On paper, it sounded like a clear case of body shaming and manipulation. But once more context began to emerge, the situation started to look very different. Behind the scenes, Blake had actually introduced Justin to that same trainer, a well-known celebrity fitness coach who also happened to be a close friend of both Blake and her husband, Ryan Reynolds. Messages later revealed Justin had reached out politely, saying, "Hey, I think I know who this is. Justin Baldoni here. A new friend of Blake's. We're working together on a film, and I'll be heading your way soon for training." The trainer responded positively, suggesting a call to discuss details. That friendly exchange changed everything. It raised the question: if Blake herself made the introduction, how could she later accuse him of secretly contacting the trainer without her consent? Adding to the confusion were text messages cited in Blake's complaint, where Justin allegedly referred to the trainer as a damn spy. Reports claim he believed the trainer was feeding private information back to Blake and Ryan, prompting him to try to manage the narrative by telling others his concerns were about his back pain. However, critics have argued that this was taken out of context, that Baldoni's frustration stemmed not from body shaming, but from feeling betrayed by someone he thought was simply a professional contact. The bigger picture reveals that this so-called fat-shaming scandal might have originated not from a cruel insult, but from a messy web of personal relationships, misunderstandings, and gossip. The trainer in question was reportedly very close to Blake and Ryan, often posting photos with them on social media, which some believe fueled the perception that he was more loyal to their side than to Justin's. From there, rumors began to spiral out of control, shaped by whispers, assumptions, and hearsay. What might have been a harmless comment, something as casual as two men discussing an upcoming physically demanding scene, could easily have been twisted into something far more malicious once it reached the wrong ears. But this was only the beginning. Long before the lawsuit and the headlines, tensions had already been brewing on the set of It Ends With Us. What was supposed to be a heartfelt adaptation of Colleen Hoover's beloved novel soon turned into a battleground of creative clashes and personal friction. From the very start of filming, insiders say there was an undeniable strain between Lively and Baldoni. Blake, passionate about her character's portrayal, allegedly pushed for changes to dialogue, costumes, and even camera angles, seeking to ensure the story reflected her interpretation of the role. Baldoni, wearing multiple hats as actor, producer, and director, reportedly viewed some of these changes as disruptive to his overall vision for the film. At first, the disagreements seemed minor, simple debates over tone or blocking. But as production continued, those minor disputes reportedly evolved into heated exchanges, occasionally witnessed by members of the crew. The set environment grew increasingly tense, especially given the emotional weight of the material they were filming. It Ends With Us tackles themes of trauma, love, and abuse, demanding raw vulnerability from its stars. Trying to perform those heavy scenes while navigating real-life conflict only intensified the pressure. Crew members described the atmosphere as emotionally exhausting, like walking on eggshells, never sure when a simple disagreement might erupt into another argument. Sources close to the production say the tension wasn't limited to artistic vision. There were also disputes about creative control, credit, and even how the story would be marketed. Rumors circulated that both stars had different ideas about how to portray certain characters, with each trying to protect their image and influence the narrative. Meanwhile, fans online speculated about behind-the-scenes drama, and the tabloid press eagerly amplified every rumor. As the situation escalated, the so-called fat-shaming claim became the perfect storm, the point where personal frustration, professional rivalry, and public perception collided. What might have started as an awkward or misunderstood conversation between a director and a trainer turned into a viral controversy that questioned motives, reputations, and even integrity. For Justin, it was an accusation that threatened his credibility as both an artist and a man who publicly advocates for kindness and respect. For Blake, it was a deeply personal experience that left her feeling betrayed and shamed, regardless of intent. And yet, the deeper you look, the murkier the truth becomes. Every side tells a different version of the story, and each piece of evidence seems to contradict the last. Was this truly about body shaming and manipulation? Or was it a tragic example of miscommunication, ego, and trust breaking down under the spotlight of Hollywood pressure? What's certain is that this was no ordinary celebrity disagreement. As insiders later revealed, the tension went far beyond creative differences. There were personal grievances, jealousy over decision-making power, and quiet resentment over whose name would define the project's success. What began as a dream collaboration between two of Hollywood's most admired stars slowly unraveled into one of the industry's most closely watched scandals. A cautionary tale about how fame, friendship, and power can collide in devastating ways. Now, with both parties reportedly preparing for more legal and public fallout, fans are left wondering who's telling the truth and how much of what we've heard is real. Because in Hollywood, every story has two sides, and sometimes both are equally unbelievable. The situation took a shocking turn when Blake Lively's legal team filed a formal lawsuit against Justin Baldoni and the film's production company, alleging harassment, emotional distress, and a toxic work environment. What had started as whispers of creative disagreements exploded into a full-scale legal battle that sent shockwaves through Hollywood. According to Lively's camp, the issues went far beyond artistic tension or miscommunication. They claimed that Blake's concerns were repeatedly dismissed, that her input was belittled, and that the working conditions on set had become increasingly unbearable. At the heart of her accusations was Justin Baldoni's dual role as both producer and director, a position of immense power that, according to the lawsuit, allowed him to dominate the production in ways that blurred professional boundaries. Lively alleged that his authority went unchecked, transforming what should have been a collaborative and creative environment into one marked by control, pressure, and intimidation. Her team argued that Baldoni's influence created an atmosphere where dissenting opinions, especially from her, were not only ignored, but actively punished. Lively's lawyers asserted that they possessed a substantial body of evidence to back their claims. This included internal emails, production notes, and testimony from anonymous crew members who allegedly witnessed or experienced the same behavior firsthand. Some of these crew members reportedly described feeling pressured, dismissed, or even bullied when they tried to speak up about unfair treatment. According to one source, the culture on set became so strained that even minor disagreements would spiral into full-blown arguments, with tensions running so high that several crew members considered quitting before filming wrapped. These allegations painted a picture of a deeply fractured production, one where professional collaboration gave way to mistrust, emotional exhaustion, and a sense of fear. Lively's camp claimed she had reached a breaking point, feeling cornered and unsupported when she voiced concerns or requested changes to her schedule, wardrobe, or creative direction. What began as a few disagreements over how certain scenes should be portrayed evolved into something far more serious, a power struggle that left lasting scars on everyone involved. Behind the glossy Hollywood image, a darker narrative was unfolding, one that questioned not just workplace ethics, but the nature of control and respect in high-stakes filmmaking. Insiders whispered that the lawsuit could have career-altering consequences for both stars, potentially reshaping how future productions are handled in an era where accountability is more critical than ever. And then, in an unexpected twist, reports surfaced that the two had crossed paths again, this time outside the courtroom. Rumors swirled that despite the tension and controversy, they'd run into each other socially. Both were single, both still navigating the aftermath of the fallout, and according to onlookers, the encounter was surprisingly civil, even friendly. Whether it was a fleeting coincidence or a sign of reconciliation remains unclear, But one thing is certain. The saga between Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni was far from over. In Hollywood, the line between personal and professional has always been thin, and in this case, it may have disappeared entirely. The controversy surrounding Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni continued to evolve at a dizzying pace, captivating the entire entertainment world and leaving fans, critics, and insiders divided. What started as whispers of on-set tension had now exploded into a scandal so consuming that it blurred the line between truth and performance, between personal pain and public spectacle. The moment Blake Lively's legal team filed their lawsuit, the tone of the entire conversation shifted. No longer was this just a story about creative disagreements. It became a deeply personal war of words, power, and reputation that threatened to destroy everything both actors had built. According to Lively's camp, the problems ran far deeper than mere artistic clashes. They claimed that Blake had endured repeated humiliation and that her input was consistently dismissed or minimized throughout production. She allegedly faced an environment where speaking up came at a cost, where her professionalism was questioned simply for expressing creative opinions. The lawsuit painted a picture of a set ruled by fear and control, where Justin Baldoni's dual position as both director and producer gave him the kind of unchecked authority that few dared to challenge. Lively's attorneys argued that he wielded this influence in ways that stifled collaboration and created a culture of intimidation, turning what should have been a creative partnership into a professional nightmare. Her legal team maintained that they had gathered a significant body of evidence to support these claims. Documents, internal emails, and testimony from crew members who had allegedly witnessed the dysfunction firsthand. Some of these anonymous insiders described feeling trapped, ignored, or pressured to stay silent about what they saw. One crew member reportedly claimed that every day felt like walking on eggshells, and that tension on set was so thick that even minor disagreements risked becoming full-blown confrontations. Others described the production as emotionally draining, with morale collapsing as personal and creative boundaries blurred. Justin Baldoni's response was swift and defiant. Within days, his legal team filed a counter-lawsuit, calling Lively's accusations not just false, but malicious. His attorneys asserted that her allegations were a calculated attempt to damage his credibility and control the narrative before the film's release. They argued that her claims had already caused serious harm, scaring off potential investors, halting production deals, and putting his career on hold. In their version of events, it was Blake who had made the set volatile, not Justin. They portrayed her as temperamental and demanding, claiming she made excessive creative requests, micromanaged aspects of production, and created tension among the crew that disrupted the film's schedule and inflated costs. Meanwhile, Lively's representatives doubled down, insisting that her actions were about self-respect, not sabotage. They said she had every right to demand fair treatment and to speak up when she felt belittled or dismissed. According to her camp, this wasn't about ego or power. It was about standing up for professionalism in a system that often silences women who challenge authority. The competing lawsuits, both packed with emotional testimony and contradictory evidence, quickly transformed into a cultural flashpoint. Fans found themselves split down the middle. Those who believed Blake was courageously exposing toxic behavior, and those who saw Justin as the victim of an overblown media circus. The headlines became relentless. Entertainment news outlets ran the story around the clock, with every new document leak and courtroom update generating fresh waves of speculation. Social media turned into a battleground, where hashtags like Sock Justice for Justin and Brock Stand with Blake trended simultaneously. Online commentators analyzed courtroom gestures, dissected statements, and debated who seemed more sincere. The sheer visibility of the feud was staggering. In a matter of days, the lawsuit and countersuit dominated Hollywood discourse, overshadowing even major premieres and awards announcements. And yet, beneath all the noise, the real casualties were the reputations of two of Hollywood's most adored stars. Justin Baldoni, once praised for his vulnerability and advocacy for emotional intelligence, was suddenly viewed through a lens of suspicion. Meanwhile, Blake Lively, long admired for her elegance, charm, and steady professionalism, now faced criticism from those who accused her of being difficult or calculating. The industry began to whisper about whether either of them could recover from the fallout. Then came a surreal twist that no one saw coming. Both Lively and Baldoni attended the Saturday Night Live 50th anniversary celebration, an event meant to honor the show's comedic legacy, not fuel more scandal. The guest list read like a who's who of Hollywood: longtime cast members, celebrity alumni, and surprise appearances from global icons. Yet all eyes were on Blake and Justin. According to witnesses, the atmosphere between them was tense but controlled, polite smiles masking years of resentment. Also in attendance was Ryan Reynolds, Blake's husband, along with his ex-wife, Scarlett Johansson, who is now married to SNL head writer and Weekend Update anchor Colin Jost. The tangled web of Hollywood relationships was on full display that night. Observers couldn't help but speculate what conversations or silences were happening behind the scenes. Scarlett Johansson's presence sparked even more curiosity. As part of the SNL inner circle, she's long been known for avoiding tabloid drama, preferring to keep her personal life out of the public spotlight. Insiders noted how she appeared calm and unbothered throughout the event, steering clear of reporters and avoiding any comment about her ex or the controversy surrounding his wife. Her silence was as powerful as a statement, reinforcing her image as a professional who refuses to feed into gossip. Meanwhile, the tension between Lively and Baldoni's camps continued to intensify. Every small development, a leaked email, a rumored text message, or a court scheduling change, became a headline. Then, as the case gained momentum, the unthinkable happened: an alleged courtroom breakdown that changed everything. During one of the early hearings, multiple witnesses reported that Blake Lively broke down in tears while describing her experiences on set. Her emotional testimony stunned the courtroom. Observers described it as raw and heartbreaking, a glimpse of a woman emotionally pushed to her limits. Justin Baldoni sat quietly through the moment, his expression unreadable. Some reports claimed he appeared remorseful. Others said he looked furious. That single moment ignited a fresh firestorm of debate. Supporters saw Blake's tears as genuine proof of her pain, while skeptics accused her of manipulating public sympathy. Overnight, the case stopped being about contracts and clauses. It became a global conversation about truth, power, and emotional authenticity. The film that was supposed to be a touching adaptation of It Ends With Us, a story about love, resilience, and self-discovery, had instead turned into a real-life drama that mirrored its themes of heartbreak and control. The production, once hailed as a potential blockbuster, now sat in limbo as its stars faced off in a courtroom. What had begun as a promising collaboration between two of Hollywood's most admired figures had become one of the most captivating and divisive showdowns in recent memory. As both sides dug in for what was expected to be a long, grueling legal battle, one truth became painfully clear. This was no longer about a movie. It was about image, influence, and the fragile facade of Hollywood perfection. The outcome, whatever it would be, wouldn't just determine the fate of two stars. It could redefine how the industry handles power, accountability, and the stories that play out behind the cameras. The public conversation surrounding the Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni case reached a fever pitch when speculation over Blake's courtroom behavior began dominating the headlines. What had once been a carefully contained legal proceeding suddenly erupted into a full-blown media storm, and this time, the focus wasn't on legal strategy or evidence, but on emotion, optics, and the unpredictable human side of celebrity scandal. It all started during what was supposed to be a standard hearing, a procedural update, not a dramatic confrontation. Yet, according to multiple insiders present that day, the atmosphere in the courtroom was tense from the start. As the judge addressed the ongoing motions and preliminary findings, Blake Lively appeared visibly anxious. Those in attendance claimed that she sat rigidly, her hands clasped tightly, her expression pale and distant. Some described her as looking like she hadn't slept in days. Then, as the discussion shifted toward the defense's counter-argument,